second sitting, inshallah, of the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Last week, we talked about the world before he was born, what it looked like. What the world was going through around
I have something
before he was born up to the day he was born. I talked about the political, financial, social, religious climate that was going on during that time. And I talked about a story that happened around 50 to 70 years before he was born, something that happened in the heart of the Arabian Peninsula. I'm talking, of course, here we're talking about the story of Al-Ukhdud, or a group of believers who followed Isa alayhi salam properly and truthfully.
How do you want me to put it?
Were slaughtered or killed horrifically by a king who decided that polytheism and claiming that he himself was a god was the way to go. And the change actually came through a young boy, a young teenager just like yourselves. He restored the faith of a complete race of people. Abdullah ibn Thamir, the Quran immortalized this story in Surah Al-Buruj so that it would never be forgotten. Because how many stories are there in history that are forgotten? Just based on the fact that no one told the story and it just faded away. The story of Al-Ukhdud was immortalized in the Quran. And it had a very strong and heavy impact on the Arabs for many years to come. For many decades, this story was spoken of. Because a whole tribe were burnt alive for believing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all the tribes in the land stood around and watched quietly. And they did nothing. Passively, they had no intention of making any difference whatsoever. SubhanAllah. And this had a very, very heavy impact on the way people thought.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah. And an announcement for next week. Inshallah, next week there will be a Qiyam program for students or for boys from grade 6 to grade 9, sorry. Grade 6 to grade 8. It will happen, inshallah, after this halaqah. So it's a program that you need to register for. The deadline of registration, I think, is on Thursday. This is coming up Thursday or this coming up Friday. There'll be a poster put out. And for those of you who would like to register for it, it'll be limited seats. So you can first come, first serve. And it'll be something that will continue after our halaqah till Fajr time. So you guys can look it up and understand what the program is going to be like. If you've ever done a sleepover in the masjid, then you know what I'm talking about. And it's going to be limited seats, and it'll be the first round will be next week, inshallah. So you guys can register within this week up to Thursday, wallahu alam. So please go to the website or ask those who are involved and get more information and sign up if you think it's something that will be beneficial and helpful for you. Now, I'm going to do a quick recap of a few things we talked about. The Prophet ﷺ, even though it was going to be a very difficult thing for him to do, to make the difference in Arabia, he had three things that worked for him. There were three basic points that he was going to use. And this is when you're a good manager, when you're good at management, then you're capable of taking weaknesses or finding what points of strength you have within your vicinity to use for your advantage. And the Prophet ﷺ is going to use three basic things. Number one, he was going to use the time of Hajj. See, the time of Hajj, people did Hajj before Islam because Ibrahim a.s. is the one who brought Hajj. So Arabs did Hajj every year, same time. And it was the only time where all of Arabia would gather in one place. So within Mecca and the suburbs of Mecca, all the Arabic tribes would come during the time of Hajj for 10, 15 days every single year. And he would use that to his advantage to talk to people. Another thing he was going to use was his language. You see, the tongue of Quraysh, the accent and the linguistics of Quraysh was what was the prominent language of Arabia. And he spoke it fluently, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, so he was able to communicate with all tribes. So his ability to communicate, alayhi salatu wasalam, was another advantage, another strength point that he used to his advantage, alayhi salatu wasalam. The third point that he was going to use was the fact that Arabs were free. The concept of being a free person, having freedom within your heart, within your behavior, knowing that you've never been humiliated by anyone, you don't belong to anyone. Arabs were ignorant, they were scattered, they were poor, they didn't have any organization, but they had their freedom. An Arab person on his horse with his sword, nothing in the world can stop him. And that feel of freedom is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cherished so much that He chose Arabia for the place for His final messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to be. And I think it's something that we have to think of again. To raise our kids, once again, to be free. To think freely, to speak freely. This doesn't mean that you have no adab. Doesn't mean that you do it in a way that offends others. Doesn't mean that you prey on other people's holy issues or sacred items in their lives, and you don't prey on these issues. What you're trying to do actually is be a free thinker, be a free person, have your own identity and be your own person. And that is something that was in the advantage for within Arabia. Another recap that I'll talk about, and I need you guys to remember this very, very clearly, is why is it that the Asnam was such a big deal for Quraysh? There were over 360 Asnam, over 360 idols on the Kaaba and around the Kaaba. Now, was it because they respected idols? Is it because they loved idols? Was it because they actually believed that rock could benefit or harm? No. The reason was the financial affiliation with it. Shaitan was smart. And he found a way to make sure that the idols were going to be there for a financial reason. Quraysh needed رحلة الشتاء والصيف. They needed to take their caravans during the summer and winter to Yemen and Syria and trade freely and make money. And the only way they were going to make it there safely was if all the tribes on the road were going to secure their caravans for them. How they did that? Okay, bring your idols, put them on the Kaaba, and we'll secure it for you. And that's how they made sure that they stayed rich. And when the Prophet ﷺ came with La ilaha illallah, they said, what are you talking about? Do you understand what La ilaha illallah can do to us? Do you understand how hard we work to make sure that this stays put and we make our money? You can't find something else. We like the way you're thinking, Ya Muhammad, but just how about no La ilaha illallah? How about that? How about just play? How about 1 year this and 1 year that? Huh? They'll come up with different negotiation points because they just the everlasting story of al-haqq, of righteousness, and al-masalih al-shakhsiyya, personal interest. The long-lasting war, may I say, between righteousness and between personal interest. It happens within our hearts all the time, and it happens in the world all the time. It is everlasting. It's been since the beginning of time, and it will continue till the end of time. Where righteousness and the righteous who stand by it will continue to struggle with those who prioritize their personal interests. And you need to ask yourself, what type of person are you? What type of person are you? What is more important to you? What is more important to us as Muslim? Righteousness, doing the right thing, standing by what is right, or our interests? Or is it all fair game when you touch my money? Just don't come near my family. Just don't threaten my financial stability. Just don't threaten my social status. Just don't this. I'm all for righteousness, just don't touch what's mine. No, it doesn't work like that. The belief in righteousness, the standing by al-haqq, understanding the importance of al-haqq is infinite. There are no conditions. You can't conditionalize your stance by righteousness. You can't do it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make sure He finds out. He will make sure you prove it to yourself. That is haqq, the most important thing in your life. If you say, yes, Ya Rabb, al-haqq is the most important thing. That's why His name is al-haqq subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will make you prove it. He will push you to your limits so that you prove it. You will be tested in everything that is valuable to you to make sure that you actually believe in it. Important thing to think about. Another recap is, this is a nice little thing to think about. When you think about his name, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his grandfather named him. He named him Muhammad. And you think about it, Muhammad means the praised one, the one who is praised. And his name indeed was Ahmad, the one who praises the most. And there's a very, very strong affiliation between Hamd and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's message. You see, the first surah to be revealed to him was what? Alhamdu lillahi rabbil alameen. Right? Started with Alhamd. Every time sallallahu alaihi wasallam would finish doing something in his life, he would go, Alhamdulillah. You finish eating, Alhamdulillah. You come back from a trip, Aibun, Ta'ibun, Abidun, Hamidun. Every time, what does he do Yawm al-Qiyamah? What does he carry with him Yawm al-Qiyamah? Liwa, he carries a liwa what? Liwa al-Hamd. He carries the it is like a pole where on it is written Liwa al-Hamd, of praise. This is for praise. This is for the people who praised Allah, and all those will come around it. When he prostrates under the throne of Allah Yawm al-Qiyamah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what does he do? يَحْمَدُ اللَّهَ بِمَحَامِدٍ. He will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in ways that no one has praised him before. See, praise is all through his life. Why? Because the last thing you do after you finish something is you do Alhamdulillah. And he is the final of the messengers. He's the final messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Khatamun Nabiyyin. So it was only appropriate for his name to be Muhammad. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ending prophecies. There are no more prophecies after him. So what's the most appropriate way to end prophecy? Call the Prophet Muhammad. Because everything ends with Alhamd. Another thing is, in order for him to bring the uprising sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he brought, in order to change the community, the social norms, the way people think, and the attitudes of individuals and groups, for that to happen, you have to have this optimistic outlook. You have to be someone who has alhamd, who has you're praising continuously. Everything that happens to you, if it happens good, what do you say? Alhamdulillah. If it goes bad, what do you say? Alhamdulillah. All you say, no matter what happens, is going to be Alhamdulillah. Optimism is a part, because you can't build. You can't go from a low, difficult situation to a high one without that mentality. You can't overcome obstacles. If every time something bad happens, you're pessimistic and you lose hope and you get frustrated, no, Alhamdulillah, went well. Did it go well? No, Alhamdulillah. We move on. We keep on moving on. We keep on moving on. We move forward regardless whether it went well, didn't go well. We keep on moving. We just ask on the way, how'd it go? Well, Alhamdulillah. How'd it go? Not well, Alhamdulillah. We continue. And that's how he made it, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. An important affiliation that you kind of keep in your mind. Before I talk about his birth, I want you to be able to imagine him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and see him. Now if you go to the books, like Shama'il al-Muhammadiyya, Imam al-Tirmidhi, or if you take a Shifa al-Qadi Iyad, if you take any of the books that specialize in describing the way he looked, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you will find much description. And I did a halaqah that took, I think 8 months of just going through the description, the physical description of what he looked like. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you the way he looked in 3 stories. And I am 100% sure that after these 3 stories, you will know exactly how he looked, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And I'm not going to use any of the physical descriptions. Okay, the first story I'll tell you. When he made his hijrah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, to Medina, there was a scholar of Judaism by the name of Husayn ibn Salam, later known to be known Abdullah ibn Salam. Now this man had a lot of indications and pieces of evidence through which he would know if Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was a prophet or not. So he had like a lot of questions. So he spent all nights with his son writing down those questions, rehearsing how they were going to ask him these questions, because sometimes they need to know something without directly asking. So they need to come up with a scenario where they would see how he would react and they would know if he was a prophet or not. So they had to rehearse all this stuff and prepare themselves. They stayed up until Fajr, and by then his son had written it down on a paper, and they're ready, and they're going over to the house of the Prophet ﷺ to test him, to see if he's Rasulullah. So they stand in front of the door, they knock on the door, he opens up sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Husayn says, Ashhadu annaka Rasulullah. Immediately. The son looks at his father, what? What are you doing? What about? قال يا بني ما هذا بوجه كذاب هذا وجه رسول الله. This is not the face of someone who would lie. This is the face of Rasulullah. Look, my son, look at the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then at the second story, Jabir tells us, one day I was walking, it was a full moon, the night of a full moon, the 13th, 14th, or 15th, the night of a lunar month. And he was walking, he said, I was walking towards the moon. And I'm walking and it's beautiful and there's no clouds. It's perfect if you've ever been like in the desert with a full moon. It's a very, very beautiful thing to see. So he's walking and he sees coming from the same direction that he's looking at the moon, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, our Prophet, is coming from the same direction. So he says, فَأَخَذْتُ أَنظُرُ إِلَى الْقَمَرِ أو إِلى الْبَدْرِ وَأَنظُرُ إِلَى وَجْهِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. So I started looking at the moon, and then looking at the face of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then looking at the moon, and then looking at the face of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فقلت فوالله لوجه رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في عيني أجمل من البدر. I swear that the face of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم was more beautiful in my eyes than the moon. Abdullah ibn Rawaha tells us the third story. سألوه كيف كان رسول الله? How did the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم look like? What did he look like? فقال كنت إذا رأيته مقبلا. If you saw him coming your way, قلت طلعت الشمس. You will say the sun is rising. The moment he comes your way, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, you say the sun is rising. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. That's how he looked like. Can you understand what he looked like? I'm not going to describe the nose and the eyes and the eyebrows and the teeth and the mouth. And it's all described. You can go and you can study it. It's there. But I find this much more meaningful. That's how he looked like. When they looked, it was just nur. It was this light, it was this closeness. It was this beauty that had nothing to do with facial, with the jawline and how much hair. It was about just something else. Something that was inner, something that was inside that showed on the outside. Alayhi salatu wassalam. Alright. He was born, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as most scholars agree to, the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal, of the lunar calendar, on a Monday at sunrise, alayhi salatu wassalam. Most scholars believe that is the 20th of April, 570 AD. So if you want to go look back, as far as most scholars. Walid sallallahu alayhi wasallam was born to a very simple family, in a very normal manner, alayhi salatu wasalam. His father had died before he was born, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the important story that I'm going to tell you now, when he was born, alayhi salatu wasalam, is what Quraysh did with their newborns. You see, Quraysh did something very peculiar with their newborns. Quraysh, every time there was a newborn, they would send that newborn to the suburbs or to the tribes that lived in the countryside. Now this was an agreement that the tribes of Quraysh had with different tribes that lived within the countryside around it. As an example of a very known tribe was called Bani Sa'd. Banu Sa'd, this tribe, what they would do, they would send their women in, or their men, their families, and what they would do when they came into Quraysh is they would look for newborns. And they would take their newborns with them to the countryside. Now if you're asking, well, why on earth would they do something like that? Well, this is Quraysh's idea. See, Quraysh was a city. In Medina, Mecca was a city. And Mecca was a city with a lot of people in it from different backgrounds and cities are much more busy, and people have usually different ways of thought and speak differently, and you're living inside small apartments, and they wanted their children to grow up on the countryside, to breathe fresh air, to speak the authentic Arabic tongue, to learn to work the fields and take care of animals, and to be able to run freely. They didn't want their kids to grow up in these small tuna cans that we grew up in. Unfortunately for you, wallahi, one of the things that you were missing out on, we all live in small apartments, and even if you live in a house, it's still closed. You see, closed areas will bring forward closed minds. You need open areas so that you can have open-minded people. You see, when you live in a place where you can see the horizon in every direction, and it's just the open land in front of you, that has an impact on the way you think. And when you think about it, that is quite deep for a tribe that buries their own daughters. It's quite deep for a group of people who worship rocks, but they didn't think like that. And it's funny how we don't care for this anymore. The fact that they cared, and for them it was important. It was important for them that they sent their children to the countryside to grow up healthy and strong and to have a better surrounding as they grew up. And of course, Amina bint Wahab, the Prophet ﷺ's mother, did the same. And she wanted to send her son Muhammad to the countryside, to a murdi'ah, a lady who would breastfeed him and take care of him for a year or two of his life, like everyone else. So there were periodic times where Banu Sa'd would send in families to pick up the kids, and the women of Quraysh would know of that time, or the families, and they would wait for them, and then they would have the exchange. So when the time came, Amina took her son, and she went and she stood waiting for Banu Sa'd's families to come and pick them up. And as the ladies came to pick up the newborns, they would walk by the Prophet ﷺ and just go to the next person. The first lady walked by him. The second lady walked by him. The third, the fourth, the sixth, the 10th. 20 ladies, 20 families walked by Amina and her son Muhammad ﷺ and went on to the next person. Nobody wanted him, alayhi salatu wassalam. Nobody wanted him. Why? Well, his father died. He doesn't have much money. You see, the way they had it set up for Banu Sa'd was that the money you would pay the families to take the kid was a small amount. It was a very small amount of money. How they made their money was gifts. You see, the fathers of these children, or the families of these children, would come every couple of weeks and bring a lot of gifts to these families so they could see their children, because they wouldn't go for 2 years without seeing their newborns. No, they would come and visit, and they would bring a lot of gifts. And it's the gifts that these families of Banu Sa'd were looking for. The actual money that they made, the actual paycheck that they were going to get, very trivial stuff, not much. So all the ladies who walked by him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the baby, they were looking, saying, he doesn't have anyone to pay and give gifts. What is his uncle or his mom or his grandfather going to do? So they walked by him. And no one wanted him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. The person that all of us here in the masjid today are sitting, enjoying his stories, enjoying praising his name, and sallallahu alaihi wasallam, doing salah alayhi every time we can. No one wanted him. Are you understanding this? Subhanallah. Al-mulk lillah. Wallahi, it teaches you something. You see, the sovereignty is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You think because right now you don't have much, or because people don't respect you, or because people don't care for you, or you're not, that means you're not worthy? No. You see, Yusuf alayhi salam was sold when they found him in the well. Instead of taking him back to his parents, they sold him. وَشَرَوْهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَةٍ وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. And they sold him for a very small amount of money. They didn't care for him. To them, he wasn't worth anything. Just sell him for whatever. Just make a few bucks off him. Right? Yeah, he wasn't worthy to people, but he was worthy to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yusuf and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you, and me, all of us. Doesn't matter whether people value you or not. Doesn't matter how people view you, what they think of you. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala how He thinks of you and how He values you. No one wanted this orphan child. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was not a prize for them. They weren't looking forward to taking him home. Let us listen to Halima telling her story. She said, تقول خرجت وأقراني نحو مكة. I left, and all the families, all the ladies who were with me going to pick up the newborns. We went towards Mecca. قال فدخلنا فكنا إذا عرض علينا محمد تجاوزنا عنه. And every time Amina would show us, here, I want you to take him. تجاوزنا عنه. We would say, no, we already have a kid. We would just say something so we don't want to be rude. We already have a kid. نقول ما يصنع عمه وجده. We tell ourselves, what is his uncle and grandfather going to do for us? They're not going to give us enough gifts. فَتَجَاوَزَهُ الْمُرْضِعَاتِ. And all the ladies who came left him and moved on. وَتَجَاوَزْتُهُ أَنَا. And Halima said, and I left him too, I didn't want him either. قال وَلَكِنَّنِي لَمْ أَحْظَ بِرَضِيعٍ. But I was unlucky, I didn't find a child to take home. وَلَمْ أُحْبِبْ أَنْ أَعُودَ إِلَى دِيَارِ بَنِي سَعَدٍ دُونَ رَضِيعٍ. And then at the end, when I saw all the other ladies who came with me, they had their own children, they had the newborns, and I didn't have one. I didn't want to go home empty-handed. فَقُلْتُ آخُذُهُ. I said, all right, I'll take him. Subhanallah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Sayyid al-Khalq, ya khwan. The best of all creation, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No one wanted him. No one wanted the little kid. Don't worry. Wallahi, don't worry in life. When you hear this story, all I can tell you is never worry. No matter what people think of you, say about you, don't worry. You're not better than Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and that didn't happen to you. Your mother never put you on an auction to someone to take you and no one wanted you. So no matter how much people disrespect you today, in your mind, go say to yourself, no. It happened to a great person before me. It happened to the greatest of all people before me, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And one day I'll amount to something. And one day I'll achieve something, inshallah. And you will. Bi-idhnillah ta'ala, you will. فَقُلْتُ لَا أَعُودُ خَالِيَةَ الْوِفَاضِ. I don't want to go home with nothing. فَأَخَذْتُ. So I took him. So when I took him, قال لي زوجي, my husband told me, والله يا حليمة إني لأراك قد أخذت نسمة مباركة. Oh Halima, wallahi, I feel like you took a blessed soul with you today. A very nice man. A man who was very, very easy. His name was Harith ibn Abdul Aziz. A very nice person. He said, wallahi ya Halima, don't feel bad that he doesn't have a lot of money behind him and he won't get many gifts. I think you took a very blessed soul. تقول حليمة فكنا أسرع الناس على ناقتنا. Our camel was an old camel. We were always at the behind of the groups of people and always kind of, come on, move it. And on the way back, our camel was like galloping in front of everyone, and we were looking behind, right? And our son she had a son with her, and she's like, my son wouldn't sleep in the day, he wouldn't sleep at night, he wouldn't drink milk properly. He was a very difficult kid. After having the Prophet Muhammad with us, our son started to drink his milk properly. He would sleep whenever Muhammad slept. He would wake up whenever Muhammad woke up. And then when we arrived in Diyar Bani Sa'd, and I have some pictures for you for Diyar Bani Sa'd. To listen to. So here's the Bani Sa'd. So you understand where the area I'm talking about is. So you can see it's an area where it's good. It's a good place for grazing for sheep and for camel to graze. And Halima had a lot of sheep, but it was a time where there wasn't any green. There was no green. The sun, the sky hadn't sent down rain in a long time. But Halima would say, and I would send out my sheep to graze, and the only sheep that would come back with milk in them were my sheep. So the people of Banu Sa'd would say, "Israhu bi ghanamikum, haythu tasrahu ghanamu Halima." Take your sheep and make sure you hook your sheep up with the sheep of Halima, because the only sheep that seemed to be bringing back milk for the kids is Halima's sheep. Of the barakah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She tells us, and he matured quickly, and he grew up beautifully. And he walked, so when you think about it, what she's telling us is, the Prophet ﷺ, as a kid, he walked a bit earlier than other kids did. And he matured a bit quicker. He had deeper questions. He said things that other kids his age didn't say. And he thought of things that kids his age didn't think about. He was interested in things that kids his age were very interested in. He matured a bit early, ﷺ. And Halima loved having him around. Halima loved it. Let's jump 55 years into the future. 55 years into the future. After Ghazwat Hunayn, the Prophet ﷺ is told that amongst the people, the prisoners of war, is akhuk fil rida'ah, is your brother through breastfeeding. And this is something known within Islamic creed. And the boy that she was talking about, that they were talking about to him, ﷺ, was Halima's son. The boy, I will give you an example. So the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ahu, is it actually him?" فَقَالُوا نَعَمْ, yes it is. So he goes, he finds him as a prisoner of war, and all his belongings also taken because he was fighting against the Muslims. So the Prophet ﷺ said, he stood in front of the Sahaba, قال, إِنِّي أَسْتَأْذِنُكُمْ أَنْ أَفُكَّ أَخِي هَذَا وَمَا مَعَهُ. I ask your permission to let my brother leave and take his stuff with him. فَقَالُوا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ أَوَ تَذْكُرُهُ. Do you remember him? Like, do you even know him? فَقَالُوا لَا. فَقَالَ لَا. No, I don't remember him. فَقَالُوا إِذَا لِمَ تَصْنَعُ. Then why are you doing this? قَالَ وَفَاءً لِأُمِّ حَلِيمَةٍ. Out of loyalty to my mother Halima. She took care of me of years, it's only proper. فَأَذِنَ بَعْضُ الصَّحَابَةِ وَلَمْ يَأْذَنْ بَعْضُ. Some of the Sahaba, because he's not dictating, they said, "Okay, Ya Rasulullah, we'll give him back his stuff, some of his stuff." And some of the Sahaba said, "No, Ya Rasulullah, I want this stuff, I want it." So the Prophet ﷺ, what he did was, he took a loan of money from someone, from a friend, and then he bought with it the rest of the stuff for his brother and gave it to him. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So he went into debt, alayhi salatu wasalam, on himself to send his brother from Rada'ah for Halima, just for the sake of Halima, for the sake of his mother Halima. She's not his mother, but the lady who took care of him. Today we will, one of the strongest attributes or the strongest lessons of today will be loyalty, wafa. You remembering those who stood by you in your life. You remembering those who you owe, whom you owe a lot. Parents, for example, teachers, older people, elders in your life who stood by you and helped you. And al-wafa. If you don't have loyalty, I'm sorry, you don't have much. If you can't be loyal, if you don't remember those who stood by you, and you're not willing to do something about that and to help them, to stand by them, then I'm sorry. Alayhi salatu wasalam, 55 years in the future. Wafa'an li ummi Halima, loyalty to my mother Halima. Halima she was so happy having the Prophet ﷺ with her, that when the 2 years were up, she returned with him. Of course, they have to bring them back to Mecca. So she returned him to his mother, and she tried to convince his mother to send him back with her another year. But Amina didn't want to. Some narrations indicate that he went back for a few months with Halima and then he came back, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But they wanted to hold on to him for as long as they could. The father, Al-Harith, was telling Halima, hold on to him for as long as you can. If you can keep him here forever, keep him here forever. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the mother, Amina, is like, no, that's enough. Let him come back now. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, at the age of 2, would go in to live with his mother, Amina bint Wahab. Now, you're probably asking, maybe you're not, well, where's his father? His father Abdullah died when the Prophet ﷺ was still in his mother's belly. Wasn't born yet. The first yutum, his first orphaning, for him to turn an orphan. He was an orphan ﷺ before he was even born. The scholars tell us the most difficult type of turning into an orphan is for a child to lose one of his parents before he's born, or before she's born. One of the most difficult things a child can go through psychologically. And I'm wondering, do you think the Prophet ﷺ asked where my dad is? I told you I have a dad. Why does everyone else have a father but me? And he probably had to be explained to him that, yeah, your dad died before you were born. And he had to learn what death was at a young age. He never said, Baba in his life, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yeah, he never got to say that word. You get to say it. I know sometimes you get a little slap on the head every once in a while, but you say it. It means a lot to be able to say that to your... He never got to say it. And you would think that he wouldn't know how to deal with children after that, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yeah. He would come to the Sahaba, to the young kids of the Sahaba when he was older, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he would come to them and he would hug them and he would say, إِنَّمَا أَنَا لَكُمْ كَمَثَلِ الْوَالِدِ I am to you like a father. I'm a father to you. The young girls, when he moved into Medina, there were a few neighbors to his house, and young girls came one day and knocked on his door and they sang, نَحْنُ بَنَاتٌ مِّن بَنِي النَّجَّارِ يَا حَبَّذَا مُحَمَّدٌ مِّن جَارِ We are girls from this family called Bani Najjar, and we are very happy to have Muhammad as a neighbor. So he would take them, he would hug them and kiss their heads, and he would say, Allahu ya'lam anna qalbi yuhibbukunna. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that my heart loves you. And he would hug them and kiss their heads, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he was a father figure. He was a father figure to everyone who lived with him, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Even some of the Sahaba who were older than him. Even some of the Sahaba who were older than him in age still felt that fatherly figure that he had, alayhi salatu in his life. Even though he never had a father himself. Just because you didn't get something doesn't mean you can't give it. Just because you're not blessed with something doesn't mean that you cannot give it. Just because you're not wealthy doesn't mean you can't give. You cannot give charity. Just because you're not a scholar in Islam doesn't mean you can't help. You can't aid people in learning. No, it doesn't mean that. Give what you have. The Prophet ﷺ never had a dad, but he was a father figure to everyone. To everyone. He would live with his mother ﷺ from age 2 to age 6. Now what happens when he was 6 ﷺ? His mother will decide to take him to go see his father's grave. Now where was his father buried? You see, his father went on a trip while his mother, he didn't know Amina was pregnant at the time. So he went on a trip, he was a merchant, and on the way back he stops in Medina, in Yathrib, because his uncles from his mother's side, Abdullah, his father, his uncles from his mother's side lived in Yathrib. So he wanted to stop by over there and see his uncles. Now, when he gets there, and he lives in Mecca, he stays in Mecca for Medina for a few days in Yathrib. At the time it was called Yathrib. He gets extremely sick. And then he dies. And he was buried in Yathrib. So Amina wants to take her son 6 years later, to go see his father's grave. Why? Out of loyalty to her husband. You're going to see loyalty. You're going to find out that the reason he was loyal, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, is because those older than him in his life were loyal. Because his mother showed loyalty, and his grandfather showed loyalty, and his uncle showed loyalty. You want your kids to be loyal? Show them loyalty. Don't command them loyalty. Show them loyalty. If you don't take care of your family members, if you're not someone connected to your family, I'm sorry to tell you, very likely your kid will do the same towards you too. If you don't show loyalty to those who stood by you in your life, then it's very likely that your kids won't do the same. You want loyalty to become a part of our community's life? Show it. Demonstrate it. Don't command it. Show it. Show loyalty to your wife. Show loyalty to your parents. And your child will watch. And he will hear. And she will then do what you did. It's as simple as that, wallahi. Amina, out of loyalty, of course, the Prophet ﷺ was living in Mecca with his mother and with Ayman, Baraka al-Habashiyah. She took care of him as well. She was his nanny. And the three of them went on a trip to Yathrib so that he could see his father's grave. And they arrived there in Yathrib, and he would get to know his father's uncles. The loyalty. She wants him to see his father's grave and to get to know his father's uncles. She wants her kid to know his father's family. You see, women and men who don't do that with their kids, who try to keep their kids from knowing their spouse's family, you're not doing it because you love your kid, you're doing it because you love yourself. It has nothing to do with the kid. If you truly loved your child, you would make sure they were connected with all their blood relatives. So she went on this 400-kilometer journey so she could introduce her kid to his father's family and to see his father's grave. So the Prophet ﷺ would talk about this story often. And he would say he remembers going to Medina to Yathrib as a kid, and he remembers learning to swim in one of Yathrib's wells. فتعلمت السباحة في بئر من آبار يثرب. That's where he learned how to swim. And when he was 6 years old, he stands in front of his father's grave. You don't think he's asking himself questions. It's hard. It's hard to deal with this. It's not easy. But that's not the last of his problems. On the way back from Yathrib, in a place called Abwa, right over there. This is where Medina is. This is where Mecca is. Now the way they would go from Medina to Mecca, they would have to take the coast because it was safer. In a place called Abwa, 150 kilometers away from Medina, Amina suddenly gets extremely ill. And they stop their travels and they put up a tent. And Ayman Barakah tries to take care of her and bring her back to health. But Amina gets sicker and sicker until she finally passes away. And the 6-year-old with Ayman will dig a grave for his own mother. The Prophet ﷺ will dig his mother's grave and will put her in the ground in Abwa. I have a question for you. Why would this all happen to him? Just think, just a rhetorical one, just think about it. Why would this all happen to him?
Who's Ayman?
Ayman Barakah al-Habashiyya was the nanny that took care of him within this house. She lived with Amina. And they buried his mother. When you think about it, he was born without a father. At the age of 6, he buries his own mother. Now he has Ummi. You understand what a mother is, right? You understand what it is to have a mom? And the importance of having your mother. Wallah, you could be 80 years old. When you lose your mom, you cry. You fall to your knees. I know men in their 60s, when they lost their mothers, they said, now I know what it means to be an orphan. Now I understand, finally. I understand what it means not to... It's hard. And all he had left in his life, all he had left was his mom. 6 years old, he buries her. It's not like there was men there to carry her. No, he had to do it. He was 6, and he stands there in front of his mother's grave. And you ask that question, that obvious question, why would this happen to him? It's preparation. When you go through difficulties in life, know the following. He is preparing you for something great. He is preparing you. He is making sure that you are strong enough to carry the weight that he's going to put on your shoulders. That's it. That's all it is. You see, alayhi salatu wasalam was going to carry the heaviest of messages. And he was going to live the most difficult of lives. And he was going to bring the biggest light. He had to have strong shoulders. He had to be a tough person. He had to have that strength within him. So he had to be introduced to death and life at an early age. He understood ﷺ from an early age what it meant. I know people well in their 40s who still don't understand death and what death is. And when they lose someone, they don't know how to deal with death. No. Inshallah, none of you lose loved ones, and all your loved ones live long lives, and we all live long lives. Qulu ameen. Inshallah, we all live long lives. But death is a part of life. It's a reality. And he had to learn it at the age of 6. That's why when he became, later on, when he became the grand leader of all of Arabia, he would say, Mali walid dunya, wa mali dunya wa mali. What do I want from dunya? What does dunya want from me? Innama mathali wa mathalu dunya. The example of me in this dunya, كمثل رجل استظل تحت شجرة ثم راح وتركها. The example is a man who's on a road, on a travel road, and then he sees a tree. He stands under the tree for a while in the shade, and then he moves on. It's just a simple period of time. You're only here for a few days. 25,000 tops, that's it. And then you move on. That's why the Prophet ﷺ, when once he was standing after Ghazwat Hunayn, and there was enough sheep to fill up a valley between 2 mountains, and a man came beside him and said, Ya Muhammad, Ya Rasulullah, ahada lak? Is this all yours? Wow, look at this is all yours. فقال نعم. أتعجبك? Yes, do you like it? فقال نعم تعجبني. Of course I like it. قال هي لك, take it. فقال تهزأ بي? What are you mocking me? You making fun of me because I'm poor? That's what. فقال أتعجبك? Do you like it? قال نعم. قال خذها, take it. قال فانصرف الرجل يلتفت. So he quickly started to move, and he was looking back, making sure the Prophet ﷺ didn't change his mind. Like, this is it, what, you're going to give me all of this? You give someone like a couple of bucks, $100, you're giving him enough money to rule. You're giving up money to buy a small country. What are you doing? قال فانصرف يلتفت ويقول يأتي إلى أهله. He comes to his people and he says, اذهبوا فإني عدت من عند خير الناس. Go to where I came from. I came from the best of all people. أنا عدت وجئتكم من عند محمد. I came to you right now from Muhammad. يعطي عطاء من لا يخشى الفقر. He gives away as if he has no fear of poverty. As if he doesn't fear not having money. It's weird. He just gave me all this he just gave me. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nah, he couldn't be fooled by dunya. Why? Because he lost his father before he was born, and he buried his own mother. He understands what this dunya is. It's very simple. It's nothing. We get caught up on what we belong and what we have and our belongings and what we own. We get caught up in these things and our status and who remembers us and who talks about us and where we're going to go next and how much money we're going to make and where we're going to live. Get caught up in these things. It's dunya, Sheikh, it's nothing. The Prophet ﷺ once he was standing, after Fatih Makkah, and a man who wanted to come and meet him was standing there shivering. Why? Because he thought he was a king and he was just very nervous to meet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the man, as he's shivering, the Prophet ﷺ comes to him. يقول هون عليك يا هذا, take it easy. ما أنا بملك, I'm not a king. إنما أنا ابن امرأة كانت تأكل القديد بمكة. I am just the son of a lady who used to eat beef jerky in Mecca. They would take, she couldn't buy the good meat. She had to buy the meat that was put in the sun for a long time, the cheap meat. So take it easy, I'm just, no problem. That's what he would say, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين في الجنة. Me and the one who takes care of an orphan will be like this in Jannah, right beside each other. Why? Because he was an orphan, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He himself was an orphan. ألم يجدك يتيما فآوى. Did he not find you an orphan and then gave you a place to live and then helped you out? But he lost both parents, alayhi salatu wasalam. A very important thing. See, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا هُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Sometimes you'll hate what's coming your way. Sometimes you'll hate the situation that you're in. It's very difficult. You're unhappy. You're not comfortable. You're not getting what you want. You're not achieving what you're setting out to achieve. You're doing everything right and nothing's working. It's okay. Sometimes you hate what you have, but it's khayr for you. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was preparing the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He prepared him. And when things go bad for you, know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing you as well. So don't worry. Understand how short this life is. Ibn Ata'illah Sakandari says something, a very, very beautiful little thing. رُبَّمَا مَنَعَكَ فَأَعْطَاكَ وَرُبَّمَا أَعْطَاكَ فَمَنَعَكَ. Sometimes He will deprive you of something to give you something later. And sometimes He will give you what you want at a certain point, but later on He will deprive you. Don't get caught up in what you have right now. Understand that it is all preparation. The Prophet ﷺ was going to be much stronger, much more solid as a person because of these things. He would move out of his mother's house, ﷺ, and move into his grandfather's house. Now who's his grandfather? Oh, his grandfather. Now I'm going to tell the story, inshallah, of his grandfather right now. 50 days before he was born, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a very important event took place in Arabia. Something that is also immortalized in the Quran. A man called Abraha, who lived, let's see if we can find you guys can find one of the maps, who lived in a place called Abyssinia or Al-Habasha. And this man, if you go back a bit, this right there, this one. So over here, in Mamlakat Uksum al-Habashiyah, there was a leader called Abraha who wanted to make some money. So he built a very big church. And he wanted the Arabs, instead of coming to Mecca, to come to the church. So he made the church beautiful. It was a monumental, something amazing. Because Kaaba, what is Kaaba? It's a box. It's a small box. That's all it is. Very simple thing. But this man's like, I'll build something beautiful, and then I will make incentive for the Arabs to come to my land and visit this. So he built it and he waited for people, for tourists and pilgrims to come. No one came. Arabs weren't going to leave the Kaaba. It meant too much for them, or to them. So Abraham decided, okay, the only way I can get this done if I go and I bring down this Kaaba thing that they talk about. So he takes an army and he goes across the Red Sea and he comes up to it. He brings this big army. The army was so huge that it had elephants. Arabs had never seen elephants before. They had never seen an elephant. The Arabs were like, what is that, a dinosaur? What is it? They've never seen that. They have camels, that's what they have. They don't have elephants. So they saw an elephant, they got scared. So all the people of Mecca left Mecca and went to the mountains and just waited. They couldn't fight this army. They were too weak. Now the leader of Mecca at the time was Abdul Muttalib ibn Hashim, the Prophet's grandfather. Now Abraha keeps his army a bit outside of Mecca, waiting for the people of Mecca to come and talk to him. He's bringing an army to destroy their sacred house of worship. So Abdul Muttalib comes to speak to him. Now Abdul Muttalib was a tall and hefty man, and when you saw him, you respected him. So when he entered into Abraha's tent, Abraha felt that intimidation and he left his throne to sit beside Abdul Muttalib. He was intimidated by Abdul Muttalib. So he sat down beside him instead of sitting on the throne. And then he told him, I am here to destroy the Kaaba, destroy your house of worship. What do you have to offer me? And what are you here to say? فقال عبد المطلب إنما أخذ جندك إبلا كانت عندي فردها إلي. Some of your soldiers on their way here took some of my camels. And I'm here to ask you to give me back my camels. You're stealing my camels. So the king is like, لقد هبتك لما رأيتك. When I saw you, I was intimidated by you. But what is this? You're asking for camels? I'm telling you, I'm here to destroy the Kaaba. What are you camels and what are you talking? I have an elephant. What are you talking about camels? I'm here to destroy your Kaaba. فقال إنما أنا رب الإبل. I am the Lord of the camels. I take care of camels. They belong to me. They're my responsibility. وإن للبيت ربا يحميه فامضي. And the house has a Lord who will take care of it. Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to take it down? Go take it down. So he got very angry. Some narrations say he gave back the camels. Some of them say he didn't. But he sent Abdul Muttalib out. So Abdul Muttalib left. But Abdul Muttalib was forever known as the man who stood in front of Abraha. He was ever known in Arabia, the man who actually entered and spoke to Abraha. And actually looked down and mocked Abraha. And told him, I just want my camels. You want to try the Kaaba? Go ahead. He was known for that. And he was very famous for it. Wasn't a rich man, but he was famous for it. Respectable guy. And of course the story you all know. So he tries to do it. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the simplest of manners, takes them down in the funniest of ways, actually. Have you ever seen birds? Yes, of course you have. Have you ever seen birds and then got extremely scared? Have you ever seen birds and then just lost your mind and run into the car and phone the police because there are birds in the sky? Of course, birds, they're beautiful, they chirp, right? They're nice, they're beautiful. Birds are simple. Birds are the symbol of beauty. Are the symbol of weakness, actually. You know, if you've ever eaten birds, like small birds, you actually need like a bowl of like 50 birds for you to have a meal. They're so small. They're very weak. I come from a country where people always go out and they hunt birds, and we have small birds, and we eat very simple things, very beautiful animals, beautiful things. Do you think Abraha and the people with him thought for a moment when they saw the birds that what was going to happen to them was going to happen? They probably said, oh look, birds, how beautiful, let's take a selfie. No, they didn't. But it's birds, it's a beautiful thing. But subhanallah, by the time the birds had come down and went up again, not one of them was standing alive. Not one. Except the horses, the camels, and the elephants. Everything else was gone. Abraha included. They all died. People of Mecca standing on the mountains saw this with their eyes. They were standing there. No one told them. They looked at it. 50 days before the Prophet ﷺ was born. He grew up, ﷺ, listening to this story. He grew up listening to the two stories I told you. All that generation of kids grew up listening to the story of Al-Ukhdud and what happened then, and the story of Abraha and the birds. And he believed that, oh, that's Allah. It has to be Allah. It's none of the idols, none of the rocks. It's Allah. They came from the sky. And the whole generation of kids, of that generation specifically, had this respect, had this admiration, had this reverence for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that no other generation had, because they heard this story every time. It was their bedtime story. Tell them, remember the day that Allah protected us from the man with the elephant, from the army that came to destroy the Kaaba with birds. with birds. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change things anytime with whatever tools He wants. He can use tools that you don't even believe are tools at the time. If I were to tell you Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if I was to tell you Allah is going to destroy this army, then you're thinking, okay, maybe lions, maybe crocodiles, maybe, phoenixes come in. Birds? You're not going to think it's birds, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will do what He wants with what He wants. It's not about Him changing things for us. Ya Khwani, it's not about Him changing things for us. It's about us doing our job. He can make it the change very simply, very easily. With a few words, He destroyed an army. Don't worry about it. When He wants to make the change, He'll make the change. But the question is, are you ready to make the change too? Are you ready to do your job? You see, that was the final miracle in the history of humanity that would come and change historical events. I'm being very accurate with what I'm saying right now. I need you to listen to this and understand it. The final miracle that would ever happen in the history of humanity was al-Fil, a miracle that will change historical events. From now on, the next time an army comes to destroy the Kaaba, they will destroy it, rock. They will bring it down to its foundations. No more miracles that will change historical events. From now on, you are the miracle that will change historical events. That's why the first word in our whole faith system is Iqra. Read and learn and plan. Keep questions to the end, inshallah. Read and learn and plan, and that's how things are going to change. No birds are going to come to the sky next time. If you're waiting for miracles to change the situation and status of the ummah today, then I have news for you. It's not happening. Nothing is going to happen. It's going to stay exactly the way it is until we happen. You and I have to happen. We have to bring the change. The final of miracles was Yawm al-Fil. But it stood as a memory, as an incident for us all to be reminded that when He wants to do something, subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's very simple. That's why the surah is in the Quran. أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ فَعَلَ رَبُّكَ بِأَصْحَابِ الْفِيلِ. You see how simple it was? Very simple, didn't take anything. Just do your job. Stop saying that this ummah cannot be fixed. The problems will not go away. We will not achieve. No, we will. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do it easily. Just, you're not willing to put in the... Say that. Say, I'm not willing to put in the time. Say that. Don't say the ummah won't change. Don't say that. You can't say that. You have no right to say that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change what He wants, when He wants, how He wants, in the simplest of manners. But what you should be saying is, I am not willing to try harder. I am not willing to put my money and to put my time and to put my sweat and to put my effort into it. Say that if you want. Or change the whole attitude. Or change the whole attitude. And say, no, I will, and I will change, and I will improve, and I'll make a difference, and then inshallah before I die I will see change, inshallah, in the ummah. And if it doesn't happen for me, it'll happen for my children or grandchildren. Say that, and inshallah it will. He will live with Abdul Muttalib, the man who knew what was going to happen next. A man who all of Arabia would come to consult with, to ask questions. And Abdul Muttalib, if you go forward to the Kaaba picture, every single day, he had a abaya, a very big abaya, like the one over there. And then he would go in front of the Kaaba, and he would take off his abaya, and then he would put it in front of the Kaaba, and he would sit on it. And no one was to sit on that abaya without his permission. If you had a question, you needed to be a leader of another tribe, coming with an appointment to sit with Abdul Muttalib and speak to him. And that was a sacred place, no one touched that. And all day long, all he did, Abdul Muttalib, was speak to the leaders of the tribes of Arabia, talk about politics and finance and social issues, all day long. Now the only person who sat beside Abdul Muttalib in his little area over here, on the abaya, was Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the 6-year-old boy. When he first sat on it, the people came and tried to pick him up. No, you can't sit here. Abdul Muttalib said, leave him alone. You can sit wherever he likes. You see, was it hard for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to live with his grandfather? Not really. Why? Because his mother made sure he knew his father's family. Because his mother made sure that Muhammad was connected to his father's family. That's why she took him to Yathrib, to get to know his father's uncles from his mother's side. That's how committed she was, that's how loyal she was to her husband. And that's why when she passed away, it was easy for Muhammad to live with his grandparents. Actually, the funny thing is, he was living only with his grandfather. The lady he was married to at the time wasn't his grandmother. His grandmother had died a long time ago. So it was only his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. And Abdul Muttalib every day would sit on his abaya talking to people about politics and finance, issues of social problems and theology, talking about huge epidemics that are going around, the issues of the Persians and the Romans and how Arabs aren't talking about these things. And you would think a 6-year-old boy would be running around, kicking a ball, pulling hair, right? Causing chaos. You have to yell at him 1,000 times to sit down, and still he won't sit down. To his surprise, Muhammad was sitting right beside him, listening to every word. Al-Muttalib was, we could be talking and he would tell the person, look at my grandson. He's 6. And he's like really listening, like totally focused. All the other kids are running around, he's totally focused. And he would tell the person in front of him, Inna ibni hada, this is my son, he means my grandson. Inna ibni hada sayakunu lahu sha'n. One day he's going to amount to a lot. Look at him, he listens to everything. Tell me, oh PlayStation people, oh Clash of Clans people, tell me, how many times do you watch the news? A year. Do you even know what news is? When was the last time you picked up a book that wasn't a comic book? Of course, not against your will, obviously. When was the last time you were interested in understanding the sufferings of those around you? When was the last time you showed interest in learning something that you weren't forced to learn? When was the last time you decided, I want to know, what is this story they talk about? What is this issue of Philistine that I keep on talking about? When did this start? How long has it been going on? What exactly happened here? When was the last time you decided to learn some history? And when was the last time you picked up a book within a field of science that you're interested in, that you know you're interested in, instead of playing on the computer or watching some YouTube video of some cat playing with a ball of yarn or some stupid thing that has no effect on your intellect at all, and actually learn something for yourself? You see, this is the time where you need to educate yourself. You need to obtain skills. You have to be someone with experiences. You have to be someone who knows things. You see, if you don't spend time learning for yourself, but by the time you're 30 years old, you're going to need to have opinions of everything around you in life. You need to have opinions, or else people will say, what, you don't talk? It'll be weird for you not to talk about the important stuff by the time you're 30. But if you didn't spend enough time when you were young learning about these issues, then you won't make up your own opinions. You will just take the opinions of guys who did. So your opinions won't even be yours. Your opinions will be the opinion of some other guy who spent his childhood, who spent his early years and his teenage years learning and reading and educating himself, so he has an opinion and he can defend it strongly and he can speak of his convictions and articulate it properly, but you can't. You just say whatever he says. Why? Because you had level, townhouse level 10 or something, right? Because you know how to play FIFA better, or you knew how to shoot with the mouse thing. You know how to press the button better. But he understands the world more. See, the Prophet ﷺ, because when you look at his life, yes, he didn't learn how to read and write, and we'll talk about that in a while. But he was extremely well educated. And he was a well-rounded person. And he knew the names of every tribe that lived in Arabia. He knew the name of every tribe that lived outside of Arabia. He knew the history of the Persian Empire and the Roman Empire and who was in Habasha. You'll see, he's going to send his people to Abyssinia. Why? Because he knows who's there and who the king is and what family he comes from, what type of person he is. How do you think he knows all this stuff? He sat there and he listened. He listened to grown-up conversations about serious stuff. He became a serious young man with serious ideas. He was mature. Ya Latif. How I long for mature young people. Wallahi, the thing I enjoy most in my life is having a conversation with a mature young man or young woman. Someone who has serious interests. A person who actually cares about things besides the trivial issues of their lives. Of buying more toys and going to Canada's Wonderland and being able to bounce a basketball more. Someone who actually has interests that are serious and important, that show that they understand that there is life outside of their own life. That people live around in the world and not in the same status and not in the same way that you live, not with the same privileges that you have. I can't emphasize this point enough. I feel like I should stop here and just talk about this for the next 30 days until this makes sense to you. You need to learn. You need to educate yourself. The Prophet ﷺ, at the age of 6, 7, and 8, he spent 3 years with his grandfather. Sitting every day, listening. He could be playing, he could have been playing, but no, he sat down and he listened, and he learned. Ibni, sit with your dad, with your mom. Ask them big questions. Let them give you big answers. And when they're talking about something of importance, sit down and listen and learn. And don't waste your time with trivial activities that don't add to your bank of knowledge anything. It doesn't help you become a more mature human being. He will live with his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib. I hope that made sense, inshallah. He lives with his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, until the age of 8. And then suddenly, at the age of 8, his grandfather will also pass away. So 3 deaths so far: father, mother, and grandfather. Now, before Abdul Muttalib passes away, he tells his son. His son is named Abu Talib. Abu Talib is the Prophet ﷺ's uncle from the same grandmother. So Abdul Muttalib comes and he tells Abu Talib, أعهد إليك بابني هذا. I'm putting my son here, Abu Muhammad, his grandson. I'm putting him with you. Take care of him. Now you will see the level of loyalty that Abu Talib will show to his father because of those 2 words. He tells him, take care of my grandson. So Abu Talib will live the rest of his life taking care of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, out of loyalty. It's just the loyalty, the whole thing. Just he will enter the house of Abu Talib. How many children does Abu Talib have? He has over 10 children. Abu Talib has very little money, and he has over 10 children in the house. And Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam at the age of 8 is going to enter this house. There's not much food. When they put the food, what do you think? He's the first person to put his hand and get his... I'm an orphan, move away. I don't have parents. You guys have parents, so I get to eat first. The Prophet ﷺ saw immediately that there's not much food here. He saw immediately that he needs to participate. So he asked his uncle, if it's okay if he can work. His first full-time job, ﷺ, will begin at the age of 8 years old. His first full-time job, he will start working at the age of 8. When you ask yourself, why didn't he learn how to read and write, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Oh, because no one had time for him. Ya shabab, ya haba'ibi. My brothers and sisters, no one had time to teach him. You see, people know how to read and write in Arabia. But he was living in Abu Talib's house. There wasn't time. There wasn't enough money. There wasn't enough people to teach him. And he had to work. So no one taught him to read and write. Every day you get up in the morning and you go to school. Remind yourself, I get to go to school. I know you don't enjoy school. I probably didn't either when I was your age. But at least appreciate the fact that you can go to school. That there's enough financial comfort in your family's life that they can send you to a school. That you don't have to work in order for you guys to eat. Say Alhamdulillah and thank your father every day. The fact that he works hard enough so that you don't need to work. You can go to school and learn. You can learn how to read and write, and you can know history, and you can understand science, and you can study biology, and you can understand how math works, and you can be an educated person. Allah. The Prophet ﷺ, nope, didn't happen for him. He had to work at the age of 8. Abu Talib will take care of him for the rest of his life. You want to talk about loyalty? It's funny. He entered Abu Talib's house at the age of 8. Who's in Abu Talib's house, by the way? Who lives there? Where are his children? Ali wasn't born yet. Ali wasn't born yet. Who was there? Ja'far was there. Ja'far was a kid. He was like a toddler. There was Aqil. But Ali wasn't there. The Prophet ﷺ, by the time he's 25 or when he's 30, Ali was 8. So when Ali was 8, he goes to Abu Talib and he tells him, give me one of your sons to take care of. So he gives him Ali. When he was 8, and then out of loyalty, he brings one of Abu Talib's kids when that kid is 8 and he takes care of him the rest of his life. Abu Talib's wife was a lady called Fatima bint Asad. Fatima would take care of the Prophet ﷺ, right? He was 8, so she raises him. She dies, radiallahu anha, late in the seerah. And the Prophet ﷺ, when she dies, he takes off the only abaya that he had, the only rida that he owned. وَكَفَّنَهَا فِيهَا. And he made his abaya, what she was going to be put in her grave. And then he lay down in her grave, and he made dua for her, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, for this lady. And then he put her in, and when they asked her, Ya Rasulullah, why are you doing all this? You don't do this for all Muslims. Why are you doing this for her? فَقَالَ هِيَ أُمِّي رَبَّتْنِي. She's my mother, she took care of me when I was a kid. She put up with me, and she clothed me, and she fed me. The narrations tell us he cried when she died more than Ali ibn Abi Talib did himself. He was in more sorrow, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Fatima bint Asad died than her own son was, out of loyalty, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the person who was once kind to him, alayhi salatu wasallam. He will work from the age of 8. Now what will he do? he will be a shepherd. Ibn al-Akrameen, the son of Abd al-Muttalib, Sayyid Mecca, the leader of Mecca, will work as a shepherd, taking care of a few sheep. He was never embarrassed of it, by the way. When they would ask him, he would say, مَا بَعَثَ اللَّهُ نَبِيًّا إِلَّا وَرَعَ الْغَنَمِ. Every prophet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent has taken care of sheep. Has been a shepherd of sheep. فقالوا يا رسول الله حتى أنت, even you يا رسول الله. فقال نعم كنت أرعاهن على قراريط لأهل مكة. I would take care of a few sheep and get like a few pennies from the people of Mecca. Just enough money to buy some food, because he wanted to participate in the house. He didn't feel that anyone owed him anything, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because his family died. He didn't act like, well, I don't have a father, a mother, or a grandfather, so you owe me to take care of me. No, he took care of himself. He learned to be independent, alayhi salatu wasallam, at a very young age. Well, some people live until their 30s mooching off their families, and they don't feel that they are responsible of taking care of themselves. At the age of 8, he took care of himself, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he worked full time to support himself and to make sure that he participated and he added something to the house that he was living in, alayhi salatu wasalam. Taking care of sheep. Why sheep? What do you think you learned from this? When you take care of sheep, what do you learn?
Patience.
Patience. What else do you learn?
He doesn't care what.
What else do you learn?
Trustworthy.
Yeah. I mean, what else?
Responsibility.
Responsibility. He learns to be responsible. What else does he learn?
You can like lead them to like the path.
You see, sheep are unlike other animals, will not stay in one place. Sheep will always scatter themselves. You have to keep on gathering them. You have to keep on putting them in one place. You see, the Prophet ﷺ will learn to gather, because he was later on to gather an ummah of people. He was later to gather a whole peninsula of people that don't like each other, that enjoy fighting each other, that actually on a certain level hate each other. And he was going to gather them, ﷺ. He was going to bring the people of Mecca and the people of Medina and make them brothers. That's not an easy thing. He needed the practice, ﷺ. He needed to have mercy, to take care of animals. Animals don't have logic. You can't sit a sheep down and explain to it how this is not helpful to go over there, and you have a nice conversation with the sheep, and the next time it doesn't go. No, the sheep don't have any logic. And if you hit a sheep, you can kill it. So he can't hit the sheep. That doesn't work. Physical abuse doesn't work. You have to be merciful. You have to be patient. You have to be very patient. The Prophet ﷺ, within those 7 years, from 8 until 15, for 7 years, he will work as a shepherd, ﷺ, taking care of sheep, making sure that they stayed in one place, making sure he cared for them and that they were safe, and that they, alayhi salatu wasalam, learning responsibility, learning how to gather and not to, don't divide, learning to gather people, not to divide them. The most important part of a prophet's message in his life, the most important part of our message as Muslims is gather, ya ikhwan, gather, don't divide the ummah. It's already divided. Gather people, bring them together on something. At the age of 15, keep questions to the end, inshallah. At the age of 15, the Prophet ﷺ would go to Abu Talib and he would ask him if he could do a different type of work. He would ask him if he could try a different line of work. So Abu Talib would say, yes, come and work with me as a merchant, because Abu Talib was a merchant. He didn't make much money, but he made some money. So the Prophet ﷺ, even though Abu Talib told him, you don't have to, no, I want to go and learn. And he became a merchant. You see, a merchant, a tajir, someone who buys and sells and works with money, learns people. He learns what type, because it's easy. In the masjid, we're all angels. Of course, it's the masjid, it's the Bayt Allah. Of course, we're going to be kind to each other and trustworthy and honest. But we get to know each other once money comes out of the pocket. That's when the Prophet ﷺ learned how to deal with money from an early age. Learned how to manage money. He learned how to read people through managing money, alayhi salatu wasalam. He would work from the age 15 till the day he passed away, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as a merchant. He would continue to do so. Now there's two things that happen. We're going to end today, inshallah, with two more things that will happen within his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, before he reaches the age of 20. Something called Harb al-Fujar. Harb al-Fujar is a war that happened between Quraysh and another tribe. They say it is Taqif and Hawazin. There is a difference of opinion on who they fought. But the thing that it was called Fujar, which means the war of disobedience, because they fought during the Ashhur al-Hurum, during the sacred months. And they raided Quraysh, they raided Mecca. And the people of Mecca had to defend themselves. And the Prophet ﷺ was 17 at the time. And he participated in that war. And he learned the art of war, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He learned how to use the bow and arrow and use the sword. And he learned how to organize an army from the age of 17. When you say, why are you telling us all these stories? Because this is how you know he prepared. He was prepared by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't have a father to raise him, to teach him all the lessons of life. He didn't have a mother. His grandfather died too early. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is preparing him. Preparing him to lead humanity, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So these things had to happen. All these experiences had to happen during his life. He had to learn life and death at an early age. He had to sit down with people of greatness who would talk about issues of importance and listen and learn, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He would have to learn how to take care of himself and be responsible and manage money and gather and be patient and show mercy. It was all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preparing him. He says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in his life, أَدَّبَنِي رَبِّي فَأَحْسَنَ تَأْدِيبِي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught me and raised me, and he did it well. He went through a lot of difficulties, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, but it was all to make him someone strong. Another incident that happened when he was around 20 years old was something called Hilf al-Fudul. Hilf al-Fudul is a treaty. The people of Mecca, this is before Islam, by the way. People of Mecca saw that there was a lot of oppression happening in Mecca. There was a lot of poverty happening in Mecca. So they said, you know what? Let us write a treaty that we will always take care of the oppressed, that we will stand by the transgressed against. How about that? So the people of Mecca came and they signed their names and they signed up for this and they agreed to it. And the Prophet ﷺ at that young age was one of those people. And he agreed to it. And later on, years later, he will talk about this. And he will say, I once participated in Hilf al-Fudul back when I was young. And if they ask me to participate in it again, I will. And as a Muslim now, and they're not Muslim, but if they ask me to participate in something that has khayr in it, to take care of the weak, then I will do that. He learned the art of peace. He learned the art of writing treaties. So when you think about it, how many houses has he lived in so far? 5 houses. House of his father, then the house of Halima, then the house of his mother, then his grandfather, then Abu Talib. 5 houses within 8 years. He goes from 5 houses in 8 years. He learned to be very flexible, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He learned how to fit in with groups where it's hard to fit in. Because he was going from one house to the other. Every time it's new people, he has to get to know them, he has to be proper with them, he has to learn to be polite, he has to fit in and make sure he can take care of himself. Do you think the Prophet ﷺ at that age would walk into the house, throw his shoes off, just shed off his jacket in the middle of the living room, and then walk in, wake up in the morning, leave his bed completely unattended to, and walk out of his room looking like a garbage bin? Never. Never. Alayhi salatu wasalam. Never. What was his, he took care of. Because what was his, he worked for. He had to work to buy it. And he understood he was living in other people's houses, he needed to take care of them. Just because we're lucky, just because brothers and sisters that we're lucky, and we have parents that take care of us, doesn't mean that we can take advantage of these things. Doesn't mean that we can act as if this is not important. Doesn't mean that we don't value the ni'mah, the blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us in our lives. He lives in 5 houses in 8 years. His father dies before he was born. He buries his mother at the age of 6. He lives with his grandfather for a few years, he learns a lot, and then he passes away at the age of 8. He moves into Abu Talib's house, a house that has very many people in it, too many for him to be attended to learn, and to actually learn how to read and write. So he needed to work full-time job by the age of 8. For 7 years he would be a shepherd, taking care of sheep for very small amounts of money, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At the age of 15, he would start becoming a merchant. He would work like that, basically till the end of his life. He would go through something called the war of Fujar, the war of disobedience. And he would learn how war happens and how horrible war is and how you don't want war. And then he would see what Hilf al-Fudul, what a treaty of peace looks like. And he participates in that and remembers it. All these are small steps on the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preparing the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to be the final messenger. We will stop inshallah at this point, and next time we will continue. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakallahu khairan.